Theology course. I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. We're going to pick back up on page 239 of our course textbook, which is now The Devil's Pulpit. The author is the Reverend Robert Taylor. There's a link to the free PDF in the description area of the video, along with Ancient Ibaryath books that I have written, and links to my streaming and my Zoom class. Okay, so y'all can check those out if you're interested. Page 239. Let's pick up where we left off. Second paragraph, which is midway down. Let me make sure. Yeah. Hold on, y'all. So I'm going to start at the second sentence from the top of paragraph 2. Okay, so we'll begin in paragraph 2, the second sentence down, which is where I believe we left off. Well, let's start at the top of paragraph 2. But let a man rise up in age, possessing learning enough to know the meaning of the text. In other words, you live long enough to be able to know the difference between the ideal situation and the real life or the practical situation. Okay, so you know the difference. You've lived long enough to know the difference between a theory and a theorem. Okay, you know the difference. Okay, and with that learning, generosity enough to communicate his knowledge. So you have enough experience in life where you have learned the lesson that you are better off by giving, by being generous with what you have, than being selfish with it, regardless of your motive. Many people, unfortunately, if they know something, they're not going to tell other people unless you trade them something or exchange something like fiat. They're not going to tell you. Unfortunately, that's the sick world that we live in now. But life experience tells you that you're better off by sharing knowledge. That's just the way it is. Okay? In the long run, you are better off. Okay? Period. But it takes experience in life to learn that. And some people never learn that lesson. They go their entire lives being selfish, especially with knowledge, not realizing that the best way to get what you want is by giving other people what they want. And then they'll want to help you, of course, unless they have a personality disorder or they are jealous or envious of you. Okay? But these are the lessons in life that the author is talking about. All right? But let a man rise up in age. Let a man rise up in age, possessing learning enough to know the meaning of the text, and with that learning, generosity enough to communicate his knowledge, and thus to break the spell of the priestcraft. So that means what? You should share this video. You should like this video and share this video. Right? Share the knowledge that you have to break the spell, to restore distracted minds to the health of reason. Y'all got that? To restore distracted minds with the gospel. You're distracted with the gospels. You are distracted with fairy tales. You are distracted with connotative linguistics. You are distracted with beliefs, a belief system. In other words, a moral and ethical system that is having nothing to do with nature. And that's the distraction. In other words, you're under the gospel. You're under God's spell. You've been cursed. Okay? But that's enough with that. So the restoration to reason would be to return to the Most High's laws. To follow the Most High's laws, which is what? In terms of human relations, not harming yourself and not harming other people. That's the essence of the commandments. Check it. That's the essence of it. Now, of course, there are the physical laws. All right? So, y'all just heard an airplane. That's an airplane. There are physical laws. There are physical laws that you can harness and use to your advantage to fly an airplane, to propel a rocket up into the sky and keep it there, okay, until you run out of fuel. So this is nature and nature's law. Some people will say nature and nature's God. In other words, nature and those natural laws and principles that govern what we see in the physical world, including consciousness. We're talking about the Hermetic laws. The lesser laws are physics, chemistry, etc. Okay, y'all? Let's continue. To soften the stony hearts, see, you're sharing your knowledge. You're sharing your knowledge to help people return to the Most High's commandments. And to soften their stony hearts. Isn't that what Moses said? The people have stony hearts. To soften their stony hearts into the flesh of human. And whenever you see Han human, you should make the distinction. Human, Han Uman. H-A-N-U-M-A-N. That's the half man, half monkey. That's the troglodyte, the Neanderthal. So make the difference, note the difference. To soften the stony hearts in the flesh of human, of Han Uman, gentleness and love. Y'all follow it? So Han Uman has been contracted. So instead of H-A-N-U-M-A-N, it is now H-U-M-A-N, contracted. All right? No different than the Tetragrammaton. YHWH contracted to YAH. Yah. Okay, y'all? Anyway, let's continue. The priests are all on the shiver and shake for the safety of their craft. That's right. See, once you begin to tell the truth, that the Gospels are purely astrotheology, that the New Testament is no New Testament at all. It is not a new contract. It is a fairy tale. It is a book of spells. It is a book of spells used in a negative and derogatory way. It is used to put the people in bondage. That's not its purpose, but that's what it's being used for by the dark priesthood. Okay? So when men like me and others start telling these secrets, the priesthood begins to shake and shiver in their boots and in their Lexuses. Okay, y'all? Because it's a signal that the party's over. And they're going to have to get a job. And they no longer have access to your wife, your son, your daughter, or your husband in terms of their pocketbook and sexually. That's what it means for them. The priesthood are ready to set all Bedlam loose, to tear him to pieces. To tear him to pieces, that's telling people like me, that's telling you, return to the Most High. Soften your stony heart. Get out of this dogmatic belief system that you call religion. Let it alone. Let it alone. Okay, y'all? Let it alone. Come back to the Most High. Follow the Most High's commandments. Stop harming yourself by going against nature. Stop harming other people by going against nature. Stop harming your nation, your neighborhood, and your community. Stop harming the empire, the Al-Moroccan Empire. I can only speak for us who have nativity in the Americas. Okay, y'all? That's who I'm speaking for. Their patients are taught to look on them as the enemy. All right? A lot of y'all have been told that I'm a devil, right? I'm an enemy of Christ. I'm a, what's the word? Blasphemer? What's the other? There's another one. But all men and women who tell the truth about the gospel will be branded and labeled and spoken of derogatorily. Why? Because that's the only defense that the priestcraft has, which is to play on the trust that you put in them and to use it against you. To use it against you. Okay? Jesus said what? Student is not greater than his master. If they did it to me, they're going to do it to you. They lied about Jesus' character. Jesus fed the sick. He fed the hungry, healed the sick, gave sight to the blind, and hearing to the deaf. But yet, the priestcraft attacked his reputation and ultimately had him brought up of charges. Capital. Let me repeat that. A felony. A capital offense. Y'all got that? Why? Why is this? Because when you are shining, telling the truth, that's a bright light. And a lot of people, especially the priestcraft, they cannot take that bright light. It hurts their eyes, gives them a headache. It reminds them of what they should be doing and who they should be. Reminds them of everything that they are not. Okay? And plus, and it threatens the business. What I'm doing threatens the business of the church, of the priestcraft. In other words, they stand to go broke and have to get a job, and they don't have all of the sexual privileges, benefits, and advantages that they have now that they get from their congregation. So their whole lifestyle is threatened by what I'm teaching. And this ain't even mine. I didn't make up astrotheology, but me and other men and women, okay? This is what the author is talking about. Anyway, let's continue. That's enough on that. So their patients are taught to look on him as their enemy. Imagination invests him with the character of an emissary of Satan. Okay, imagination. So this is, again, what's the mechanism, y'all? Narrative transportation. Satan is a character of the New Testament who's always out to get you. And so since you have allowed and participated in yourself being transported into the narrative, you begin to believe that narrative is true and act on it in your life. And people can make suggestions to you Especially harmful are those indirect suggestions. That's called hypnosis. It can also be psychic attacks. Scholars, what are the Hermetic laws? Which of the Hermetic laws are we talking about right now? Masculine mental energy. Someone directing their masculine mental energy at you, and then their masculine mental energy putting a seed thought in the nest of your subconscious mind. Putting a seed thought in your subconscious mind, which is your Holy Spirit, right? And then your Holy Spirit taking that will from the masculine mental energy, that will from the Father, the I be, the I am, the I exist, the I am aware that I'm Chia. And then your Holy Spirit creates, because the Holy Spirit is what? The subconscious mind is always creating. It's always becoming. Y'all see it? And this is a primary mechanism of the psychic attacks. And then you create everything that's around you in your life. And you've done it since birth, and you will continue to do it up until the time you expire, because this is the way consciousness works. This is the creative process. Y'all follow me? So this is how they are keeping you in bondage with your own consent and participation. All right? You transport yourself into the narrative off of their suggestion. But that's only possible, only effective when you have a weak masculine mental energy. Your masculine mental energy is the I be, I exist, I am. That's your bloodline. Who am I? I'm my mother's son. Well, who is my mother? My mother is her daughter's son with a womb. All the way down. And like my mother used to tell me, Mama know and Daddy suppose. Mama know and Daddy suppose. Okay, y'all? So the masculine mental energy, that is your nationality. That is the law that you're supposed to follow. The great I am never changes. Always is, always was, always will be, and is all there is now. That's your nationality. That's why you have to live up to it. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And what's the essence of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice? Do no harm. Especially do no harm to yourself. Okay, so these are the Most High's commandments, stated differently or denominated differently. 4 quarters equals $1. What's the difference? There's no difference. Do no harm. Follow the Most High's commandments. The Most High's commandments are natural law. The essence of the Most High's commandments are natural law. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. There's no difference. All right? It's the same thing, stated differently. All right? Just like 4 quarters and $1. Anyway, let's continue. Their patients are taught to look at him as their enemy. Imagination, invest him. That's what we're talking about, what we just finished talking about. Narrative transportation. With the character of an emissary of Satan, the ambassador of hell, the devil's chaplain, the very walls, the mere brick and mortar of the building, within which the voice of reason is to be heard. That's in your skull place. In your skull place. Where do you reject the Christ? You reject the Christ in your mind. You reject the Christ in your mind. But the Christ is not a historical man who ever lived, inhaled or exhaled a breath of air, walked on the earth plane, or said anything. That is not Jesus the Christ. Jesus the Christ, according to our ancient ancestors, the Coptic Egyptians who wrote the Gospels, wrote the S-U-N Son as Jesus, and the 12 or the Zodiac as the 12 apostles. And all of that has been corrupted through manipulation, deceit, greed, etc. Jeremiah 8 verse 8. The book of the law. Let me repeat that. Jeremiah 8 verse 8. They have written lies into the book of the law. I'm paraphrasing. They've written lies into the book of the law and made it into a religious book. That's why I have the project, and I hope y'all will support it. The link is in the description area of this video. I have the project to remove all of the lies so that you can see in plain English what you can see in Ancient Ibaryath or the Phoenician Hebrew. You can see the astronomy, astrology in the original language. You can see the natural law and the natural phenomena and the constitutional principles. Plain as day. It's there, but it's hidden. Okay, y'all? So, let's go back to Skull Place. That the author is referring to. The very walls, the mere brick and mortar of the building, within which the voice of reason is to be heard, get a bad name, and evangelical idiots that would block the streets up to get a glimpse of a rational man. In other words, they will obstruct, they will corrupt and obstruct people from going to the rotunda where this lecture was given in 1831 on April 10th at the rotunda on Blackfriars Road. They will back up traffic by whatever means. Put buggies in the street, whatever. They'll make it hard for people to disable the bridge, make it hard for people to get there. And these days, what do? They report you to YouTube, they report you to Facebook, they get you channel strikes, they get you shadow banned by sending in complaints. See, this is the obstruction. They'll go to Amazon, complain about your books. They'll go on social media, start lying on you, pretending that they ordered something or they never got it or some problem with the distribution. Or they'll go out. Let's say I remember I had a situation where I had to stop dealing with someone. And this person went out, made YouTube videos slandering me, lying. Straight up lying in the most vicious way. But this is what they do. All right? And I'm going to give y'all this warning again. People who proclaim to be religious and they want to put themselves in the seat of a religious leader or teacher, many of these people can be some of the most wicked bastards you could ever imagine. Why? Why? Because it's often narcissists, people who are very high on the narcissism scale who want to sit in those seats. Different kinds of narcissists. Some narcissists, they have to be blinged out, right? They want to be blinged out. All kind of ice, all kind of ice on them, right? The biggest car, airplanes, yachts, the biggest mansions. But then there are the other kinds, the more insidious, the more dangerous. These are the kinds that hide it. They hide that they want to be the center of attention. And if If they feel anybody is shining brighter than them, they seek to destroy them. And how do they do it? At the back. Well, they say at the back in Asia. Hold on. So how do they do it? They start spreading rumors about this person. They start gossiping about this person, setting the situation for this person to fall, or using other people as like a cat's paw, using other people to attack them. Okay, and then they'll turn around and say, I told you. I told you I'm a prophet. I told you about this guy or this woman. When all the while they're being the puppet master. But anyway, y'all can learn a lot about narcissists on YouTube. But the point is that the priestcraft, and I'm especially talking to you Hebrew Israelites, and a lot of you Moorish teachers. Okay, y'all? So just be aware of these sorts of people. Anybody who tells you don't deal with someone, especially someone they've never met, they have no experience with, no substantial or material experience dealing with a person, they don't know them. Like Dr. Francis Cress Welsling said, one finger pointing at you, and then it's what? 3 pointing back at you. Okay, one finger pointing at someone, 3 pointing back at you. So be very suspicious of anyone who's talking trash about somebody else. That's her point. But this is the MO of the priestcraft. Be they Christians, Hebrew Israelite, Jews, or Moors. Same applies. Let's continue. Y'all think about it. You call someone the chaplain of the devil or a preacher of the devil, or you call them a blasphemer. That is enough to destroy somebody's reputation completely and make other people or to make other people become afraid to even deal with or talk to somebody that they have slandered like that. So that's like KILLING, a person. Y'all hear me? Anyway, let's continue. So the author says here, let me let the airplane go by. So the author says, imagination invests him with the character of an emissary of Satan, the ambassador of hell, the devil's chaplain. The very walls, the mere brick and mortar of the building within which the voice of reason is to be heard, get a bad name. And the evangelical idiots that would block the streets up to get a glimpse of a rational man in Silver Street Chapel dared not, for their salvation, trust themselves within the doors of the rotunda. And priests of all denominations in this metropolis, in this city, have the modesty to warn and dehort and admonish their choused hearers not for any consideration whatsoever to trust themselves to enter into that horrible rotunda. In other words, the priestcraft is saying, hey, you cannot trust your own reason. You go in there and listen to this person. Don't trust your own mind, because you may be tricked. Don't trust your mind. Trust me, says the preacher, or the general, the Hebrew Israelite general, or the pastor, the reverend. Don't trust your own mind. Trust me. Don't go there. Because he or that information is going to ruin your relationship with God. Going to ruin your relationship with Odin and Zeus and Apollo and Jupiter. Trust me. Don't trust your own mind. Well, y'all, if that's the case, if you can't trust your own mind, you should not be going to his or her church. Because you cannot trust your own mind. So maybe you're wrong on that also. I'm just looking at it logically. And if anybody is foolish enough to think that they should trust their preacher or somebody else before they trust their own mind, well, you deserve whatever you get. And let me tell you why you deserve it. You deserve whatever pains and sufferings that you get, because those are the lessons that you need to learn. Those are the lessons that you need to learn so that you will come to know that you trust yourself before you trust anybody else. Your task is to do the research so that you can make a determination to give something or someone full faith and credit or not. Okay? Never let somebody do your thinking for you. Anyway, let's continue. Quote, why? Who preaches there? Who preaches at the rotunda? The devil's chaplain. Who's presenting astrotheology and Ancient Ibaryath on the YouTube channel called Zion Law School? Dr. Yasapa. Right? If once you go hear him, your soul is lost forever. And this is what they're telling people. Not only did they say that about the Reverend Robert Taylor, but there are many people who are saying that about me. And I, like the Reverend Robert Taylor, in my day, I'm the most orthodox and the most faithful witness of the gospel. Now, are there others equal or even beyond me? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. But you get the point, right? If once you go hear him, if once you go hear Dr. Yasapa, the Reverend Robert Taylor, your soul is lost forever. You're going to share in his sins, so don't talk to him. In fact, they used to say that in the religion that I was in. Okay, don't talk to someone who either left the religion or who is disfellowship. Don't talk to them. And at the time, it seemed reasonable, right? Because according to them, it's a form of discipline. It's a form of discipline, so that they will know that they shouldn't do whatever bad behavior according to the church's rules that they did. Right? Well, it seems innocent, right? Well, wait a minute, but there's another meaning of that. There's another meaning of that which is sinister, which is this. The leadership in the religion says it will hurt our business if people who leave the religion or the religious organization, or if we put them out. It'll hurt our business if they're talking to active members. Why? Because the person who left or who got put out will tell what happened. And then the truth will start coming out. Right? So to prevent that, the truth coming out, for example, maybe some ministerial servant, some elder molested a child, raped somebody in the congregation, stole something, threatened, beat someone up. Maybe one of them is an alcoholic or drug addict. They don't want the congregation to know that. So they will put you out and ostracize you. And then scare the people by saying if you talk to him or her, you're going to share in their sins, which means pains and suffering. Y'all got it? And which means you will, in the religion I was in, you'll die forever. You won't have a chance to be resurrected. Okay? Other people's religion, you burn in hell. You don't get into the kingdom. Everybody see how it's working? That's the other interpretation of that. See, two meanings. Two meanings. The noble and honorable reason. But even still, when you look at it logically, when you have enough experience in life, life tells you from experience that that's not the way, that's not the best way, it's not the optimal way to deal with problems, by kicking someone out and preventing other people from talking to them. No, that's very destructive, because a person loses their whole family and their whole social network. They may not have, if you practice the religion that I was in, you would not have friends outside of the organization. So in other words, the organization has complete control over you. But you don't think about that, because it never dawns on you that they're doing this for power and control. Anyway, let's keep going, y'all. So he is inspired by the devil, or so they say, right? About men who are telling the truth. He crazy. He a child of the devil. Witchcraft composes his discourses. Yeah, he's teaching witchcraft. A power of fascination rides upon his sentences, and hell itself lets down the sledgehammer of conviction upon his periods. In other words, you go there, you are doomed. You listen to Dr. Yasapa talk according to the priestcraft, you're doomed. Your only safe policy is to keep away from the rotunda. The only safe policy is to stay away from Zion Law School and Dr. Yasapa. If you go there, you'll become rational. That's right. If you become a student, a scholar rather, at Zion Law School, you will become rational. You'll learn linguistics. You'll learn etymology. You'll learn philology. You'll learn history and mythology. If you just keep watching these videos, you're going to learn astrotheology, right? If you are dealing with Dr. Yasapa, me, I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. If you take the one-on-one, you take any of my classes, you will learn Ancient Ibaryath. You will learn astrotheology. You will learn the Hermetic laws, the Hermetic principles. You will learn constitutional principles, and much, much more. And the priestcraft don't want you to know that. And there are some Moors who put themselves in teaching positions, and they unfortunately also don't want you to know that, or this information. Okay scholars? So use your own mind. Don't listen to people. Make your own decisions. You do the research, and you decide whether or not to give someone full faith and credit. You decide if they're credible and whether or not you can rely on what they're saying. By what? By evidence. Records, public records. If you go there, that's if you go to the rotunda where Reverend Robert Taylor is speaking, you'll become rational, and then the priestcraft, will lose their custom forever. The priestcraft will lose you forever, because there's no way ever that you will go back and get involved in a religion once you learn the truth, not a belief system or doctrines, but once you learn etymology and how it applies, the etymology specific to the Bible, Old and New Testament, once you learn astrology and astronomy, once you learn philology and history, once you learn all of this, grammar, how to use grammar rules, there's no way you can go back to religion. And the priestcraft knows it. This ain't their first rodeo. Okay, and you're not the first person who started learning this. There are hundreds of years We are already 200 years in just dealing with the devil's pulpit. They have a history of this. All right, y'all? So that they know that when you get this information, it's curtains for them. They got to take you off the books. No more money coming from you. Only put forth your hand and pluck and eat the apples of paradise. And the devil, a tooth you will have left for any more of the crabs of the wilderness. Yeah, that's right. This knowledge is sweet. This knowledge is sweet. You're not going to want to go back to eating shrimp, cockroaches of the sea. Scavengers. Okay? This knowledge is sweet and healthy for you. As for instance, see the way that, let me repeat that. As for instance, see the way that we have in the passage I have read to you. A merciless, horrible bit of business as it is, but, okay, y'all, here we are. Let's get to the critical thinking questions. Now remember, put your religion in your closet. Let it alone. Let's use our rational mind right now. We're going to ask a series let's use our faculty of reason. We're going to ask some critical thinking questions. Critical thinking questions are used to evaluate the truthfulness of something or someone. We're dealing with the book of Hebrews. The author claims that it is written, that it was written by a high-level Freemason. This Freemason was of the Hebraic degree. Okay? First critical reasoning, I'm going to read off these questions. I'm on page 240. First critical thinking question is, who wrote it? Who said it? Right? Okay, who wrote it and who said it can be different. Who did it? When did they do it? Where did they do it? How was it done? How did they do it? Whom does it concern? Who's the audience? Who are they speaking to, right? Who's being spoken to? Who does it concern? To whom was it addressed? What does it mean? And what business is it of ours? What business is it of yours? See, should you be minding your own business? Is this your business or is it not your business? Okay? These are questions, these are critical thinking questions which every sensible man would ask on any other subject. That is absolutely true. And without the most perfect and satisfactory solution of which a rational man would no more suffer himself to be frightened at the big words of it than a sensible cock sparrow would at the clapper of a cherry tree. So what is he saying here? He's saying unless and until you have these questions answered, you don't have anything to be afraid of. Treat this book like anything else. If it don't make sense, if it doesn't stand up to critical thinking analysis, then let it go. You ain't got nothing to be scared of. Why be scared? But you're scared. But you've never asked critical thinking questions. And if you have, you've never worked them out to get all of your answers. And so therefore you're still scared of the deity. And I know y'all scared. I was once there. I know it. A lot of y'all scared to even talk to me. Whew. These are questions. Well, I already read that. So page 240, next paragraph. To be sure, Jack Straw looks devilish savage. And when the Holy Ghost blows his clapper round a little faster than usual, it makes a great noise. But let us venture once to perch on him, and we shall sing, quote, cherry ripe, 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 end quote. Hold on. And when the cherries are ripe, it is not the parson's clapper, nor his devil either, that shall hinder the clever birds from helping themselves to them. In other words, a scarecrow. He's talking about a scarecrow. What you gonna be scared of a scarecrow for? A scarecrow looks funny, right? He looks funny. But if you try to communicate with the scarecrow, you will see that the scarecrow is not real. All right? Doesn't take much to see that a scarecrow is not real. The same way that if you begin to ask critical thinking questions and working out their answers, you will see that just like that scarecrow, this book of Hebrews, the Gospels, and the New Testament is nothing to be afraid of. Absolutely nothing to be afraid of. You don't have to be afraid of that deity. Okay? Thus then, quote unquote, thus then, to all this much ado about, quote unquote, dying without mercy. See, that's how they get y'all. Y'all scared. You've been scared. They put the fear of God in you, telling you you're going to die without mercy. You're going to burn in hell. You're going to miss out on the opportunity to live forever. Right? Dying without mercy and sorer punishment. Still than dying without mercy. This trampling under the foot of the son of Zeus, of the Son of God. This sanctified bloody covenant. This unholy, spite-filled or spiteful spirit of grace. Y'all got that? The author calls it an unholy, spiteful spirit of grace. That's right. To tell somebody, to teach that they're going to die without mercy, they're going to burn in hell forever, be tormented because they did something that the deity doesn't like, that they blaspheme the Holy Spirit. As the author says, it is unholy, it is spiteful. All right? It is unholy and it is spiteful. It's not even just. Y'all think about that. Think about it. Let's say the most common sin people commit in religion. Let's say they commit fornication or adultery. Let's say they did it for 5 years. Somehow or another, their consort didn't find out until 5 years later, 20 years later. Is it justice to make that person burn in hell for eternity? Put it in context. Let's say 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years, 10 million years, 50 million years, 1,000,000,000 years, 5,000,000,000 years, 10 billion years, 1,000,000,000,000 years. And you're burning in hell for something that you did over 5 or 20 years of your life. Is that justice, y'all? Not only is it a huge amount of time, but the feeling of being burned, is one of the, if not the most excruciating type of pain that there is. 20 years of adultery, or let's say, or a lifetime of fornication, that gets you 1,000,000,000,000 years of the most extreme pain and suffering. that a man or woman could ever experience. Y'all see, this is nonsense on its face. It's not justice, and it's certainly not logical. It is not justice. If it is justice, in your opinion, put it in the comments section and explain why that is justice. Okay, and somebody else put it in the comment section as to why it is not justice. And let's compare. See who sounds reasonable and see who sounds crazy. Anyway, let's continue. Okay, this vengeance and judgment and frightful falling into the hands of the living God. Reason answers at once, quote unquote, shall I be frightened when a madman stares? But we may find, perhaps, that there is a method in this madness. But if there be a method, is a thing of which reason and reason only can judge. And they who were conscious that what they put forth would bear the scrutiny and truthination of reason, would never be afraid of looking at both scales, nor shrink from that calm and indifferent comparison of what may be urged on both sides, which it was never anything else but madness or villainy that was afraid of. In other words, y'all, use your critical thinking mind. Why is it injustice? And then why is it justice? And like I said a minute ago, you decide which one is logical, which one is practical, which one is realistic, and which one is crazy. You decide it. Put your religion in the closet. Use your rational mind, your faculty of reason. First then, who was the author of the epistle to the Hebrews, as it is called? Okay? Who wrote it? Who was the author of the letter to the Hebrews? Well, here's the answer. In the Greek manuscripts, now y'all, pause. The original, well, no, let's keep going. In the Greek manuscripts and in all authentic translations from the Greek, it is perfectly anonymous. All manuscripts, who wrote it? Undefined. Nobody knows who wrote the letter to the Hebrews. Let me ask you a question. What if someone sends you a letter and there's no natural person on that letter? For example, it comes from the office of the sheriff, or from the office of whatever. Is that a natural person? Who's going to take liability for what's in that letter? No, it is not a natural person. Should you think that this letter is fraudulent? Is that letter evidence of fraud? Absolutely it is. Who sent it? Who is this letter from? Why are you making a demand or making a claim on me, a natural man or woman? Y'all got it? It is called and we see in Greek, the epistle to the Hebrews. It is unknown by whom it was written. That's evidence of fraud. It is unknown. So when you get a letter from a de facto venue without the name of a living person, a living man or woman, it's evidence of fraud. Means nothing. Okay? It's evidence of fraud. Nor is there a single passage in it from beginning to end to glance a probability as to who the writer was. Y'all got that? From the office of the attorney general or something like that, from the office of the prosecutor. No name of a living person, no autograph, no signature, no nothing. Evidence of fraud. And what? Inducement to fraud. Okay? It is only guesswork, supposition, and imagination. What is this talking about? Narrative transportation. Narrative transportation. They want to get you to transport yourself into their narrative, where the being in the black robe, the magi, the magistrate, is an Article 3 judge. But they are not, right? That you are in the inferior position, a ward of the state, property. Black, Latino, Indian, whatever your byword, whatever the byword is that they're calling you by, right? Or the all caps name. It is only guesswork, supposition. See, they're presuming you've been denied due process of law. Supposition and imagination that has ascribed it to the apostolic chief of sinners, St. Paul. Okay? They just made it up. Okay, well, we're going to say Paul wrote it. Okay, well, we're going to say that the de facto corporate policy is law. They just made it up. Okay, y'all? They just made it up. They don't know any better. We taught these niggas well. They cannot read, and they don't want to. And we got them in the grip. We got them in the grip of religion, of Christianity. It can be Islam too, or any of the religions. So we got their mind. The religion has your mind. Okay? Now you have a disability. They know that they can control what you think and how you feel. They know that they can trigger fear and consent or acquiescence. They can trigger it because they trained you for that. Y'all know New Testament says that if you go against the government, the established government, be it de facto or de jure, if you don't do what they tell you to do, when and how, and kiss their ass at the right angle, then you're going against God. Because the government is his minister. And if you feel threatened or fear, then that means that you are against God. Yeah, that's in the New Testament. Don't believe me, go check it. And they know that. So they can intimidate you and trigger you into giving up your birthright. That's why it's absolutely necessary to escape religion. Not just the physical building, but the fear of the deities and the fear of the ostracism that you may experience when you leave. Okay? You got to get to the point where you're not afraid of those deities anymore. Because then they cannot trigger you to make you give up your birthright through fear and ignorance. Because in religion promotes ignorance, like a MF. I know people who are so indifferent. They'll say, oh yeah, I see it, I understand what it means, but I know one person who says, I don't want to give up my foundation. Y'all see that kind of thinking? Anyway, let's continue. And upon this mere guess that the Apostle Paul wrote the letter of Hebrews, see, they can't leave it anonymous, because if it's anonymous, well, I mean, maybe I shouldn't take this seriously. So they say, well, let's say Paul wrote it. Well, man, wait a minute. There's no evidence that Paul wrote it. Don't worry about it. They gonna believe it because they trust us. They gave us full faith and credit. We're just gonna say Paul wrote it, right? And then we'll write some commentaries explaining why it's most likely Paul who wrote it. Yeah, but we don't have any evidence. Well, man, we make the evidence up. Make the evidence up. Well, we don't have any artifacts. We don't have any scrolls. We don't. Well, you go make the artifacts. You go make the scrolls. Create it. And then over the generations, they will believe it. All right? Just make it up. And upon this mere guess, many of our English Bibles and Testaments entitle it the Epistle of Paul, the Apostle to the Hebrews, notwithstanding the flat contradiction of the subscription that states at the end of it, notice y'all, notwithstanding the flat contradiction of the subscription that states at the end of it that it was written by Timothy, i.e., written to the Hebrews from Italy by Timothy. Y'all got that? This is page 241, the first paragraph. In Dr. Lardner's table of the books of the New Testament, this book of the letter to the Hebrews is classified under the head of disputed books, of which definition he defines that it is one of those. Hold on, y'all. Okay? So it is one of those books which should be allowed to be read in Christian assemblies for the edification of the people, but not to be alleged as affording alone sufficient proof of any doctrine. Now the book of Hebrews is a core book in Christian theology. That is, as I understand the definition, listen y'all, according to Dr. Lardner's table of the books of the New Testament, this is a book under the heading of disputed books. Listen y'all, that is, as I understand the definition, the letter to the Hebrews, will do to be read in Christian assemblies where anything will do for the edification of the people. Paul even said he would lie to forward Christianity, right? So you can, anything to edify the people, lie to them. Make up some stories, make them feel good, make them believe, lie to them. That is, as I understand it, the building them up like blockheads, stocks, and stones into pedestals for the priest to play God on. Okay, y'all? Build you up with all kind of fake evidence, all kind of fake scrolls, fake artifacts, fake this, fake that, all to build up the Christian religion so that the priestcraft would have a congregation to suck their blood off of. The time at which Dr. Lardner, the highest authority in the judgment of Christians that could possibly be quoted, supposes or guesses, for it is all guesswork, y'all got that? It's all guesswork, that this epistle to the Hebrews might have been written, so the date that it was written, the guess, is the spring of the year of our era, 63 or 63 AD. Okay? The letter to the Hebrews is alleged, is guessed to have been written in 63 AD according to Dr. Lardner, who was the highest authority in 1831. As I, according to the author, or says the author, was as good a right and better reason for guessing than Dr. Lardner should guess that it might have been written in the autumn of the year. Listen, y'all. It might have been written in the autumn of the year 63,000 years before our common era. Y'all got that? It's all a guess. The letter to the Hebrews could have been written in the 1400s. It could have been written in the 1400s. I would suspect that it was. All the dates are lies. It's all made up. All of it is made up, scholars. Just do your research and you'll see that. You'll come to see that. If you learn Ancient Ibaryath, you'll begin to see that really quickly. See, when you come to Zion Law School, our Saturday class, 506 Incursions course, where I teach you how to translate the Bible, the Hebrew scriptures. Right now we're in Deuteronomy chapter 28. When I teach you how to translate and you see, become familiar with, and learn, develop an expertise, and hopefully you'll take it all the way to mastery, you'll see very quickly that these scribes, they just write whatever they want to write. They just write whatever they want to write. According to their doctrine and other, or let me just say their agenda. They just write what they want to write. I've shown it. Zion Law School students have seen it. In street terms, we say they full of BS. They be lying. They be lying. All right, y'all. Jeremiah 8, verse 8 is very real. Anybody who tells you that the Bible is the unadulterated Word of God is either a fool. If they have position in a religious organization, then they are a Decepticon. They are a deceiver, a liar. Unless they are just so ignorant. But then you have to wonder, how did they get in the position, right? Anyway, let's continue. My reason for guessing that it was written in autumn, well, obviously, of course, it's going to be written in autumn, right? Because autumn is what? The autumn equinox, the covenant of grace. My reason for guessing that it was written in autumn, autumn as in the autumn equinox, the fall equinox, being the strong symptoms that the epistle itself contains of having been written when wine was cheap. Okay, so that's the law of supply and demand. If you have a large quantity, you have a large quantity, right? You got a big supply, so the price will be lower. If it's springtime or summer, you got a low supply or low quantity, price is going to be higher, right? More people are wanting to buy it, so they're going to be willing to pay more. Okay? My reason for guessing is that it was written in the autumn, being the strong symptoms that the epistle to the Hebrews itself contains of having been written when the wine was cheap, and when he who was so anxious to edify others was pretty well edified himself. So this dude was drunk. And I guess it too have been written so many ages ago in honor to humanity, which should but ill brook the affront of supposing that such stuff as this letter to the Hebrews consists of could have possibly come into respectability after mankind had acquired the faculty of reason. What did he just say? He just said this book is so incredible. It's so incredible. That no rational, logical person would ever believe it. It's so incredible that no logical person would ever believe it. The only person or people who believe that are people who have been spell casted and they're out of their mind. They're detached from nature. Y'all see it? These are people who will believe anything. They're out of their mind. Okay? This is what the author is talking about. A rational person could never believe this. You'd have to what? Have been indoctrinated into a belief system in order to believe the book of Hebrews. This is what the author is saying. At the same time, I have no quarrel against the guess of any other person who might guess. Why? Because it's all guesswork. The author is saying he guesses that it was written in the autumn because of its references to inexpensive wine. That's all. But this Dr. Lardner, who was the highest authority in 1831, guessed that it was written in the year 63 AD. But it was a guess. So his guess is as good as the author's, and the author's guess is as good as mine. It's just a guess. Okay? So who cares what my guess is or what your guess is? Your guess is as good as mine. And yours is as good as Dr. Lardner's. Okay? So the author is saying, I don't have any problem if you guess a different day. Right? How can we know? With equal force of presumptive evidence, so presumptive evidence that it was written yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock. As he might urge that it begins with the express date, quote unquote, in these last days. And so listen, y'all, in these last days, that's ambiguous. That's extremely ambiguous. Okay? In these last days. What last days? The last days of this month? The last days of last month? The last day of the quarter? The last day of the season? The last day of the year? The last day of the decade? The last day of the century? The last days of the last 500? Y'all see the point? The last days of the millennium? What last days? Very ambiguous. But you can use your imagination to set that time period yourself, and you will believe it because it came from you. Narrative transportation. Okay? In these last days, and it is concerned, or let me repeat that, and it is certain that none other than yesterday and the day before were these last days. Y'all got that? Yesterday was the last day, and the day before yesterday was the last day. So the last day and the next day is tomorrow, right? The last day was yesterday, and the next day is tomorrow. And it ends in the last chapter with an equally explicit indication of date, that we should consider the end of the conversion, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday. So impossible to put a time period on this last day. And yesterday when? Which yesterday? Other than yesterday, hold on. So today is Monday in Vietnam. So yesterday would be Sunday. Okay? Yesterday would be Sunday. All right, y'all. Let me see. What do I want to do? Let's wrap it up here. Islam to all the Moors. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thanks for your support, buying my products, my books, my classes, for supporting my project to write the Book of the Law in modern English to restore the astronomy and astrology, the Hermetic laws and constitutional principles, and so much more. All right, if y'all want to support, the link to my PayPal is in the description area of this video. Y'all can also support by making a donation on my Patreon page, okay? Zion Law School on Patreon. Islam to all the Moors, and Shalom.